Newspapers with David Winkle, attorney, activist in the city of Miami and all of Dade County. People are wondering why I'm sitting up so high. Well, a good friend of mine, Mark Kaser, was making fun of me, saying that I need a high chair, I need a booster chair. So I went and got a tall chair right here, buddy, for you, Mark Kaser. And David Winkle's 6'3", so now we're almost the same level. We got a big issue in Dade County, the homeless. Seems like it's overwhelming. And I think it's failing, the homeless trust. The person in charge of it, who's done a good job in the past, raised a lot of money, I don't think he's in touch with it. He doesn't live in Miami. His daughter doesn't live in Miami. They live in Broward. He doesn't have an office in Miami. So it's time to make a new change. That's my opinion, but we're going to go to David Winkle. Let's hear all your opinions about it.
David Winker here. And
Winkle. I get Winkler, Winkle. Come on, people.
It's funny. I had when I started practicing law, I used to keep the envelopes with all the different misspellings of my name. So that's our running joke here. But community newspapers has been very, you had some front page stories about the time of the Super Bowl and the face that Miami was presenting to the world during the Super Bowl, and there were some activities, it was like, what are we going to do cleaning up downtown and the different events, and people are going to see the incredible amount of homeless people we have. And it was interesting because in your article, you really, you were like, hey, let's not put a Band-Aid on this. Let's come up with some real solutions. And I think that, there was, to the credit of the City of Miami Commission, right? So the City of Miami Commission, this is the Miami-Dade County Homeless Trust, right? It's a
That
county
is correct.
division. But the City of Miami kind of called to task. Everyone was like, and they had Ron come in and say like, hey, listen, we want,
I mean, he drove down from Broward, where he lives.
Down from Broward.
A chairman of, okay, I just want to make sure we're talking about
it. And, it was interesting, the questions that people asked, and it was really worth watching to see. We are very critical of the commission many times, and I felt like they were asking a lot of the right questions, which was, what are we getting for our money, right? Our real
City of Miami
was saying, look at we contribute to this. You are a Dade County organization, but you provide services to our things. So I'll give you an example.
Before you get to the example, where is the highest percentage of homeless?
Well,
in the 34 cities.
And that's what I was going to say. It was interesting because one thing that came out is when people get out of Turner Guilford Center, guess where they get busted?
I know where Turner is. I was there once or twice.
In Doral.
Okay. Well, the one right on 36th Street is really unincorporated, but next to Doral.
Next to Doral. And guess where they get on a bus, and where do they think they take where do they take the
downtown Miami?
Exactly.
Why?
And I mean that's the question. It was it was a very fair question from the commissioners to say like, why is this happening? Why is this happening? And they really focused on their constituency's quality of life. Like, it was interesting to hear. I didn't get the sense from any of them that they were unsympathetic to the homeless, but there was a number of commissioners asking questions of like, have we looked at where are these people coming from? Like they kind of gave the impression of these are not Miami residents who have lost a home. Who are these people? It's the mentally ill. It's people just out of jail. It's people coming in for whatever reason because of weather. Exactly. So I thought they did a really good job of just asking the question that in private business we would ask is like, listen, I got no beef with paying this. I got no beef with this tax money going for this. But what's the bang for our buck? And I think overall people are saying, even if, which, remains to be seen, and the questions they asked and the audits they're requesting and how where the money was spent, even if it was spent correctly, are we still, if the money's not being wasted and it's actually being spent in the right, is it being spent in the right places? And so, it's been interesting. We talk a lot about Al Crespo, the political blogger, with his Crespogram, and he is really.
And where do we find that?
It's at Crespogram.com.
Okay.
And he has really been after basically saying, give me these documents. It's interesting seeing Mr. Crespo do his work because it's like when you work with reporters, you see there's some reporters that are, and like just like there's some police officers, they come up with a theory and then they just try to find evidence that does it.
Correct.
And it's interesting seeing like when you see, what you see with him is him asking the questions, him fighting with government officials for the documents, and you get a chance to see the story take shape. It's like, give me these documents. And sometimes in real time, you see the documents bearing out good government.
Well,
Unfortunately, most of the time it's the opposite.
walk like a duck, look like a duck. It's probably a duck. So Crespo, keep working hard at it. Now you got me to itch to start back up on it. Go ahead.
Before you leave it, and it's interesting because, it reminds me, I don't know what, you probably remember this better, but I remember when Metro Rail went in and the expense of Metro Rail coming down US 1, and somebody kind of making a snarky remark about we would have been better off just hiring a limo to take people to work every day. It would have been cheaper.
Richard Friedman, who moved to California, came back, single-handedly almost stopped the Metro Rail. The money they spent, everybody could have had Ubers, taxis, and they would have been cheaper. With the homeless issue, there's something that I'm missing. There's a lot of millions of dollars, and these people are still on the streets. I understand that the government can't move somebody if they're on the street. They can't remove them if they're on a bus bench. But I don't see enough of the staff of the homeless trust working with these people. And if they can't get them into a shelter, help them, they should have doctors and nurses or aides going to the homeless, not just downtown, all through Dade County, and helping them mentally or physically, clipping their toenails, giving them haircuts. We paid a lot of money, and I won't be surprised if Miami Beach or City of Miami says time's up. So moving on to the next section. I heard there was a county mayor forum. I don't know where it was. It wasn't on TV. It wasn't on radio. Community newspaper was supposed to hold one in early April. That didn't happen. So tell us where it was.
So it was on. It was put on by the Miami Foundation, and there was a lot of
the best hidden secret in Dade County.
Yeah, and it was very interesting because it was much needed, and I found it very interesting because I don't know about you, but I haven't seen a lot of polling. Like, I don't know where we're at, where everybody is.
There's probably 7 polling, and each of them say they're in the lead.
And so it's been, so it was really interesting. I love the chance to hear everyone's, to have a chance to go at it. And, I think sometimes these forums are interesting. Where it's like, and let me just ask you, like, who would you, if you had to guess who the front runner right is, who would you guess?
Alex Pinellas.
Yeah, and it's interesting because, like, I would too. And where's that coming from? That's the drumbeat of the fundraising, right?
Well, yes. We don't know exactly how much money's raised and how many people, because a lot is in the PAC money. But all of them, Daniela's raised a lot of money. Suarez raised a lot of money. Bovo has it. But it's interesting. I think you're right. Who raised the most money?
That's what we're looking at, because we're kind of flying blind, and this was the first time you could see it. And so it was interesting. It wasn't there. I didn't think it was, from all indications, it wasn't well watched. I mean, it wasn't widely watched.
Was it organized?
I thought it was well organized. I just think that it was like, it's a shame that people weren't, listen, it's the middle of a pandemic, so
no. That's just an excuse.
Yeah, I mean, how that wasn't
that
on channel.
Pandemic is going to go on for months. People are going to be nervous. If people weren't watching it, it's because nobody knew about it.
Yeah, and it was very interesting because it's the same thing. I got to give you props on something you always beat the drumbeat on, is like the politicians that have been politicians for 25 years beating the drum of throw the bums out, right? And there was a little bit of that here where it was interesting, where I thought one of the most pithy comments of the whole thing was Bovo saying, listening to Alex Pinellas talking about all the things that he had done, and his response was, listen, man, after we had to hire a police officer to come in after you and clean up the mess. And I think that was the tone of I thought it was funny only in that it really, all of these guys have had their chance before, right? They've all been in positions to have their voice heard and shape how our government looks. Is there really an outsider, in this race?
There's no outsider.
Exactly.
Like Donald Trump, who I was not a fan of, he was the outsider. We have no outsider. These 3 of the people are living on the commission now who continue to beat up Pinellas about the half-penny sales tax. And with that half-penny sales tax, for the last two of them been on there 8 years, one's been on the 6 years, who had chances not to take money from that budget. But so who looked good, who looked bad? I heard Bovo call Suarez a Bernie Sanders, right?
Which is, yeah, it was funny because it's like, he staked out that kind of like, what would you call it, like the Trump area,
right?
Like just with kind of one-liners and making fun of people. Bovo did.
And it's really funny because he's kind of dry. So for him to do that,
and so yeah, it was. I mean, it was kind of ironic to call and it was interesting because I got to tell you something. It was a bold move because I think Xavier's position on Suarez's position on why are we charging tolls in the middle of a pandemic is pretty compelling and probably pretty politically popular. But yeah, to say that we shouldn't be charging, we should have a moratorium on the tolls. That's a Bernie Sanders thing. But yeah, the back and forth and the attacking, I think a lot of it was. But listen, we talk about a lot about what is your vision, and I got to tell you something. One of the things that we've talked about too is the thing I think when people watch each of these candidates, the thing to remember is it's one thing for the candidate to speak to us. It's another thing for what do you see? Like, is that candidate the candidate that can speak to the powers that be to make their vision happen? So it's like, do you have a vision? Can you communicate that vision to us, the voters? And then can you communicate that vision to who? Who runs this county? Developers, businessmen, interacting with the federal government.
And the other question is, can you get a team of 7 commissioners voting your way? And Jimenez, everybody keeps bad-mouthing him, but he got a lot of things done. Even though he had veto power, he didn't veto everything. But in your opinion, because I didn't know about that debate, and I'm pretty educated, if they didn't send it to the newspaper, to us, our readers and our voters and our hundreds of thousands of subscribers don't know about it. So this hidden debate that they put on by the insiders, I call Miami Foundation the insiders, who looked good and who looked bad.
Okay, so first of all, it's interesting you say that because that was, Bovo, I think the best press, or the most press that the whole thing got was Bovo saying like, you guys, Miami Foundation, you share the same PR firm as the Pinellas campaign, right? It was kind of this perception that Miami Foundation.
Shame on the foundation then.
Well, no, but I mean, I think and they ended up.
They
ended up addressing it.
Wait. Did Bovo bring it up?
Not during. No. But beforehand, he brought it up, and then they removed the PR agency from what was happening. But I don't think anyone. The questions were fair. It was well done. I just think like who looked good. I mean, I got to tell you something. I think that. I mean, personally, Xavier Suarez. I mean, agree or disagree with his vision for what the county should look like. He talks about a vision. Agree or disagree with Daniela and whether Daniela can get there, but Daniela has a vision about where things should change. Things should go to. It's interesting because I got to say something. Bovo's a wild card, man. Bovo is in some ways a throwback. Right, he's always beating the drum, anti-communism, the
anti-China. Used to be Cuba, now we want to complain about China.
Exactly.
China. Okay, but so
that's kind of the did Pinellas? I mean, I think Pinellas was kind of a neutral. A lot of times the front runner, if he is the front runner, these forums can make them. It can be bad for the front runner, right? Because they're exposed, they have to do it, and I think that. I find Pinellas interesting because it's kind of he hasn't been around. So so I'm the lawyer that's leading the halfpenny sales tax misuse case, right? We're asking a judge to tell the county you're violating.
I didn't know that. That's interesting.
You're violating the Florida Constitution by using the halfpenny sales tax, which we passed as a referendum to be used for new transportation initiatives. And we all know it's not used for that.
And it was used to balance the budget. And who decides that? The commissioners too.
Exactly. So not to get too technical, but basically what they did was they passed a referendum, and the language was very precise about what this money was used for. And then what happened? The commission comes together and they change the purpose of the money. That's the fight I'm having with the county. But the point is, you can beat up Pinellas about that, but Pinellas hasn't been in the government for all these budgets.
Bovo's been there 8 years. Suarez has been there 8 years, and Cava's been there 6 years. Voting to approve the budget was taking money out the half-penny sales tax.
Well, and listen, Suarez has been fighting that. There's been different back and forth. I wouldn't throw them in there.
Oh, that's correct. They might have voted against it.
So it's not as simple as that, but it is interesting because Pinellas is coming back, and I think that those of us who were around when Pinellas was there, there's we have our personal opinions.
Did you have hair then?
I had hair. I was young and idealistic back then, and I think that it's interesting to see because you don't see the retrospectives of what happened in Miami-Dade County when Pinellas was, if I had to ask you, what's your general perception of what was happening in the county back then?
We had so many things going on. I mean, we had the Ileana Gonzalez issue. We had the presidential thing. We had the half-penny sales tax. We had the transportation. I mean, whoever takes over, the mayor, will have to handle all these disasters. This virus, they're going to have a task force just on that. They're going to have to budget that. Where are they going to get the money from? Who's used to handling budgets? That's the question that we all have to figure out.
And I'll jump in on that because I got to tell you something. I had a very a personal, spiritual moment about this. I went from my community association. I live in Miami, in Shenandoah neighborhood, and we were asked to send a couple representatives to help out with at Marlins Park with the feeding of the farm share. And I got to tell you something. It was a really conflicted thing. It's it was sobering to see this endless, and I mean endless line of cars. I mean, I handed out. We had my station was dog and cat food, and we handed out bags of dog and cat food for 4 hours, right? And on the one hand, it's upsetting, right?
Why is it upsetting?
Well, in 2020, we're having food lines. People are sitting in line for 4 hours to get a thing of orange juice, a bag of chicken, milk, and a bag of apples. Okay, it's upsetting when you see it. It's also I had a couple of people drive by. Viva America, this is awesome. We're taking care of each other. So it was conflicting, but it just made me think of the task that the next person has up. And I wish I had the graphic of it. I should have brought it in because I was so impacted by it. But Grant, there was a map on Twitter the other day, and they basically took if you made every area state of the equal size. Right, so if you took the population centers and you redid the states, you redrew the map so everything was the same size. So they called it Greater Salt Lake, and that state was Montana, Utah, Idaho. It was this giant, huge part of the West. And then there's Miami. Miami is one of them, right? The 3 million people in Miami, and it was this little tiny pinhole where we are, right? And showing that is one population center, and it just made me think about the task that the next person has to come up with to make this go. And I got to tell you something. Being there, Grant, made me think of something that you always talk about, is that interfacing with the state and the federal government. God bless you if you don't get along with the governor of Florida, if you don't get along with the president. How are we going to get the help we need?
Correct. That's a big issue. Is I don't know if it's true or not. Jimenez and mayor of Miami, Suarez, battle out a little bit. But if you don't get along with the governor, doesn't get along with the president, they got problems. If the mayors of different counties don't get along with the governor, we got problems. So we have to all work together. And I worked at the Jose Marti event, and it's pretty awakening that you see how many people just don't have the money. They haven't got their unemployment money, and it's only for 4 months or maybe 6 months. And how are they going to survive because everybody thinks it's coming back. Jobs aren't coming back the way we think. So whoever the next mayor is, he's got to be able to handle that. And there's more other issues. I can name 10 major things that the next mayor has to handle. Can they get 7 votes? Can they work with the homeless trust? The tourism, it's not there. And will it come back? No. And that's the big issue. Can the mayor of Dade County deal with the other 33 mayors of all the cities?
Yep.
So you still didn't tell me who looked really good.
I think Suarez looked, I thought, really well. I thought he looked really good. I think that Pinellas was a neutral. He held his own. Bovo, I honestly...
That's pretty good considering they were attacking him.
Yep.
That's what I heard.
Yeah, exactly. And then I think, Daniela, to me, it's interesting. It's, to me, Daniela presents. I love when there's politicians who are like unpolitician-like, and when you see Daniela up there, there is something about her that's like, I think it's going to attract a voter who's like, you know what, I want a change. And Daniela definitely gives across that idea of, if you want someone who actually can genuinely express their care for what's happening. It's interesting because I got to say something. The model of that to me was Eileen Higgins when she had kind of her upset victory.
Speaking of that, there's people who considering running against her.
Yeah, and it's going to be interesting to see what happens.
Alex's brother,
Yep.
not Pinellas. The other,
Yeah.
what's the other Alex name? Renee.
Renee.
I hear Renee's considering running against.
No, I think she's going to have her hands full, and it's interesting because it's that I was just about to go there, which is where when you come in, you have to make a decision. Are you going to work with everybody? Like what is your stand going to be? If you run against
My
the
stand
status,
is I'm going to stand tall.
if you're going to run against the status quo, and then you're in the status quo, and you just stand there, and it's like, and everyone just ignores you, right? How do you interact with them?
That's the challenge yet. But let's just finish up with the mayor's race. I think it's a lot of good things coming up. There's talk about who could run it. You talk about fresh people, old people. It's tough because we need somebody who could stand up and go right in and take care of issues. We do not have a room for a learning curve.
And it's interesting because I got to tell you something. You go back to Jimenez, and I'll never forget somebody explaining Jimenez to me and saying that knew him very well. And he said, "Listen, you want to understand something about Jimenez? He's a firefighter. He just like, we're here. Let's get this job done." And it's going to be interesting if there's a falling off. Like you said, whatever you want to say about Jimenez, things happen. Decisions were made. And if things, we didn't always agree with them, but what's going to happen when you bring the next person in? And if someone's ineffectual in the environment and things don't happen, we are in a lot of trouble.
Speak about Jimenez. He has run 6 or 7 times, and he has not lost. He's like Michael Jordan. He has not lost. So it's going to be interesting. He has not lost, and he's running for Congress. That's his interest. Every race he's run, he's won. All right. So
so let's talk about that because he's got to run against Debbie Powell, and that's going to be And you saw? Did you see that she has to isolate herself? Did you see what happened?
Oh, and her husband got the PPP. You got that right. He got the money. It's crazy that she complained about it. Her husband, who lives in the same house, knows she's against big businesses, and he still applied for it. So there's no excuse on that one. The husband screwed up. You can blame her. The husband should have said, "Hey, I need the money." And it's not a loan; it's to keep things going. But if you're making that kind of money, it's wrong. Okay, speak about big races. We got Raquel against Cindy, and Cindy was the mayor of Pinecrest, and Raquel has been school board member. Ran against Jimenez, who had 35%. She's a tiger. She takes no prisoners. But she has not raised as much money as Cindy. Cindy's raised 2 or 3 times. But Raquel, she has a great name. She's a fighter. And is that your district?
That is not my district, but I know both of them, and it's going to be very interesting because there's a lot of people that are big fans of Cindy. There's a lot of people that are big fans of Raquel, and I think that this is a very, this is a really big one on working with others. I mean, I think that people that like Cindy like how she stands up for what she believes in. And if there's any rap against Cindy, it's like Cindy, she gets in fights with other people. And I think in a good way, right? She breaks eggs to make the omelet. And I think the question is who's going to be better on that commission to talk to power. And it's interesting because I think for a long time people thought there was going to be somebody else that got into that race.
Everybody thought somebody else would be other than that.
And it's it's down to the two.
They thought Jimenez was going to run.
They thought Jimenez, and that's why people. And I think it's an interesting dynamic because everyone was waiting for Jimenez to come into that race, so no one came in. So now you have a really good race with 2 people who have different visions of Raquelita and Cindy. And I'm actually really looking forward to that. I mean, everyone I talk to thinks that Cindy's going to pull it out.
Well, right now the rumors are. Mike Rosenberg of West Kendall is considering running. He's an activist, and he's a tough one. He takes no prisoners, and he He's already raised in the PAC, I think, almost $100,000. Not him. He said, "I'm not doing anything until you raise 100,000." I think they raised 100,000. He is a fighter. He believes in the Pets Trust. He was one of the founders of it. So it'd be quite an interesting.
And even I got to tell you something. I heard a rumor the other day that Ken Russell, City Commissioner Ken Russell, was looking to run. I don't think it's turned out to be true, but I mean that's the kind of rumors that are circulating around about what's happening.
Okay, let's jump to Higgins' race. If Diaz-Martinez decides to run, Commissioner Joe is supporting him. So that is a big thing off of Higgins. She won last election on a special election.
Yep.
So nobody really was concentrated on it. So Renee, what's his name? Renee?
Yeah, Renee.
He was a school board member, right? Or something like that?
Exactly.
Tell us a little bit that.
Yeah, I got to tell you, that is my district in
Okay.
Shenandoah. And so, it's interesting because...
Do you have a shirt that says Shenandoah on it?
Yeah,
Next
I
time
do.
I want you to rip it off.
I'll bring it.
Make her wear a crummy shirt and rip it
Bright
off.
orange.
Okay.
With
Shenandoah.
with lots of X's in it.
Okay.
Lots of... that race is going to be... It's interesting because I think one of the things you see here is like the way the districts are. I mean, that district runs, from us, on Calle Ocho to Miami Beach. So it's an interesting district, and it's going to, Eileen winning that race, there were New York Times articles about the change of here's this gringa coming in, not from Miami.
Totally bilingual.
Yep, and
Her Spanish is perfect.
Yep, and beating
Bruno's wife.
Barrero's wife. And I got to tell you something. I went to the debate. We had a debate with them in our community. And I got to tell you something. I was impressed by both of those women. I mean, it was an interesting thing. Bruno's Zoraida, she's a real deal. And so it was great seeing two women, running for that seat. And so we'll see. It's going to be. I think she's got her hands full.
Has Higgins done anything yet? She's been there 4 years, 2.5 years, or 2 years. Has she got any issues passed? I don't know. That's not my district. Has anything been done? That
I got to tell you something here. So here's what I would say to you. I think that in her defense, it's been a difficult situation to get the things done that she wants to. I think that she's had trouble with certain neighborhoods. For example, Silver Bluff is very upset about their traffic problem. They don't feel like they get the support from her. So it's been a mixed bag. The Flagler Street redevelopment, I think, is a good example of something that she's worked really hard on. Personally, I've got to tell you something. Her office is very responsive. I just called.
That's a big.
I mean, I got to say something. I called on my. There's a lot of illegal foreclosures that are being. It's been a drum that I've been beating. The courts passed a special rule that says if you file an eviction in Miami-Dade now, you have to attest that it's not prohibited by the CARES Act. So basically, you can't evict someone from if your home has if that property has a federally backed mortgage on it, you cannot evict people. Okay, so you have to give an attestation that it's not prohibited. I've been trying to get the same thing for foreclosures, and I've reached out to a bunch of people. I'm trying to get it done. I mentioned it to her, and they're trying to make it happen. So she has been responsive.
Okay, we have a few minutes. If you'd like to text me some questions, please do. 305-323-8206. 323-8206. Grant Miller. We have, just in this short time, we talked about the mayor's race. We talked about the homeless trust. We talked about Higgins' race. We talked about Lerner and Regalado and probably Mike Rosenberg. And, there's so many things to go. Hold on, I just got a text about beach reopenings. What do you think about it? And should we move forward or wait?
I'll tell you.
What's your opinion on it?
It's, I go back to, Commissioner Ricky Ariola, who's a very controversial person, been very controversial about pushing the opening of the beaches, running against Gelber. And I think this debate has been somewhat healthy. You have people pushing from both sides. But, he made a very good point of saying, here in Miami Beach, you have people who are living in smaller apartments who need to get outside. And, I got to tell you something personally. When I'm out and about and walking around and stuff, like the idea that we can't go to the beach and congregate properly.
Michael Miller's in the studio. Let's hear it. Hey, hey! Okay, go ahead. Finish.
So
about the
it's
beaches.
like to me, this tension has been good. I mean, I think I saw a tweet that was a little ominous, and it said, we're gonna look back on Memorial Day in 2 months, and we're gonna know, was this the day? Like people are pent up. I think you're gonna see a lot of people out in the water this weekend.
Is it open?
The marinas are open.
Well, the marinas, but not the
Parks are open.
The beaches. Miami
Beaches
Beach?
are not open.
Speak about Miami Beach. I just got a text. There's rumors that Michael Gongora, an activist on Miami Beach, is considering running for a state rep in Coral Gables, where Javi Fernandez is stepping out to run center. He grew up in that area.
Interesting.
Any opinions about Michael Gongora?
It was interesting. He caught he definitely kind of got caught in that controversy over what was the band? I actually went to that concert. Not Erasure. It was the New Order. It was on the front page of the Herald. He taken some free tickets to.
Where was the concert?
At Fillmore.
Yeah, well, Miami Beach, all those commissioners, all of them, all the mayors, they get free tickets all the time, and it was just a smear campaign. Hi, he can't have them, but I can have them. No, they all get tickets over there. I just got a text regarding schools. What do you think about schools? How public school and private schools are going to do? We have 1 more minute.
You got
Let's
it.
talk
Yeah.
about
So
schools.
I have a 7-year-old that goes to Sunset
Don't
Elementary.
talk about dancing because you talked about it already.
Yeah, exactly. And so we got our and by the way, the principal who I couldn't name the other day, Leite Vidal, who we adore, of principal of Sunset. But we got our survey from the superintendent asking, about reopening, and it's such a critical issue, I think, because how do we get back to work if we can't get our kids back to school? And it was interesting because I got a reminder to fill it out, and I asked my wife, "Hey, did we do the survey?" She's like, "Yeah." And I was like, "What did you pick?" And she's like, "I picked 3 days." And I was like, "Really? Like, I thought you'd want 5 days." And she was like, "Well, we got to be careful." And so, it's going to be interesting to see that survey. I got to tell you something. I'm really interested to see.
Is that by mail or by
electronically? But I think it's cool, and we'll talk about it when we get the results. But I think it's cool that Carvalho asked the question. Doesn't mean you have to follow it, but it will be interesting to see what the parents say about what they want their kids to do.
Regarding teachers, I got lost in this question. But they asked about, you got that. Somebody just what about the teachers? Don't they have a say in it? If you're 65 and 0, you got issues. Do they have?
Well,
to
I think it's I got to tell you something. I think it's manageable. And I've seen. Listen, school's back in session in England. It's back in session in France, Montana, Wyoming. I think they're going back, and I think that there's ways to accommodate that. I'm so sympathetic. You got a 60-year-old teacher with an immune.
Nothing wrong with 60.
No, but I mean, they let's make it work, right? Find out a way to make this. I mean, to me, it's like a lot of this it's not bright line rules. Let's come up with ways to do it. But I got to tell you something. It's funny. I think about it. It's like I see my little daughter with her little mask, and she's not the kids. It's difficult with the kids to keep it, to keep the kids in compliance. Put it that way. And so I think that the schools are going to be a problem. And it's gonna come to a head. And I got to tell you something. Right now, what's happening with summer camps? I mean, the summer camps, some are canceling, some are going. We signed up our daughter for just to give a shout out to Miami Yacht Club's doing summer camp.
Well, Michael Miller has a summer camp here. So if you want to bring your adult kids, if you're over 40, Michael Miller will love to have camp. It's quiet here now. He'll teach you. What can he teach you here? Aaron, who's our video guy, videos by Aaron. What kind of classes Michael has? So we have classes here every Wednesday and Thursday and Friday from 11:30 to 12:30. How many pizza slices can you eat in 15 minutes? Right now, 4 in 15 minutes. So we're going to wrap it up, but there's one more question. Somebody talked about rehabs. There's a lot of problems with rehabs.
Yeah, I think we're seeing, there's a little bit of a delay in the stress level, what's happening. And I got to tell you something that I think one of the untold stories here is the substance abuse problems of what's happening. I've heard that the rehab people in rehab has gone up like crazy, and they say that it's driven by two things. One, people realizing they have a problem, right? Because they're back to bad habits. They're stressed out. They're doing it.
We have that bad habit Wednesday, Thursdays eating pizza.
There you go. And then the other thing was it's the problem of people can't get the drugs. The drug supply, the supply chain for opioids, for example, is broken up. So if people can't get their drugs, they're going to rehab. They're getting detox in rehab because they can't keep the flow going. They don't have the money to buy the drugs, right? So it's like it's interesting to see that side of, again, we're going to see these like kind of things squeezed out in different directions, because they say, like, I think after China, they were like, what happened? Everyone's pregnant or getting divorced.
In China?
They said there's a big upswing in divorces and a big upswing in China. Like now we can see what happened, right? Wuhan's open.
Well, that's happening here. If you're with your wife or your girlfriend or your spouse or your partner for 3 months straight, of course there's going to be a divorce.
Yep.
Ask Michael. His wife kicked him out of the house for 2 days.
And I think
I got to tell you what, Michael. This is the best story. This is true. So his wife Susan, they've been married how many years, Michael? 38 years. He comes home, and they have a tradition because all this. He goes on the patio. He undresses, swims. She takes the clothes somewhere, and so this day, Michael comes home. He swims. The door's locked. So he calls Susan and says, the door's locked. Unlock it. She locked the top latch, too. She was mad at him because he was out too much. So he slept here for 2 days. 2 nights, Michael?
Yes, and then Grant and Aaron had a good time videoing my new bedroom at the office, and the new shower.
So talk
a
about
whole documentary.
Well documented. Susan, congratulations. But what happens is the husband or this partner does something wrong, and we're in his dining room here area. So, all right, David, it's always an honor. And listen. We really talked about good politics. We did Higgins' race, Regalado and Lerner and Rosenberg's race. We've done the mayor's race. I think we need to continue talking about the mayor's race. Tell our viewers, tell our readers why they should be really paying attention, because it's going to be. It's not like they're walking in. We have a lot of money. They're walking in. They're going to be hundreds of millions of dollars short. And here's the thing that I agree with you. If we don't get along with the governor and we don't get along with the next president, we're going to be affected.
Yeah.
Because DeSantis is going to win another term. If we don't get along with, we're not going to get that money that we need, right?
Yeah, I think it's a very good point.
So, give us your closing remarks.
That's great to be here. I hope everyone has a great Memorial Day weekend. I think it's the key is let's rest up and let's really it's kind of weird, right? We're usually summer is the time when things slow down a little bit. And it's like we're hoping to crank up and get back to work and get businesses going. And it was interesting because I saw a sign and it was talking about local business versus supporting big box, and it just talked about when you buy local business, you're paying for some little girl's dance lesson, you're paying for a little boy's baseball uniform, you're doing this, and I don't want to get into that debate, but it just made me think of like every dollar that we go out and spend right now,
right?
You can see the impact. You're going to see your local restaurant. When you go every day and buy that cup of coffee, you're going to see that. You're investing basically in the future and keeping the things we love alive.
When you go to your grocery store, find out where the tomatoes are grown. Find out what vegetables, where they're grown. If they're raised and grown in Miami or Homestead. Shout out to Mike Carricard, what do they got out there, Michael? Avocados, and the Torbits who do tomatoes, and Demario does tomatoes. These are local people. They've been here forever. Make sure when you buy them, make sure you buy in the grocery store, buy local. And for us, 2000 and what year are we in, Michael? 2020. We're on the road of January, February, part of March, being our best year ever. And even though we've taken off 3 or 4 months with this virus, it's just a hurricane, and we're going to recover, and we're going to be rocking and rolling. Print is alive and well, and because of this little virus, we are stronger than ever on our newsletters and videos and our newspapers. David, as always, it's a pleasure. And let's have a closing remark. Good night, David. Good night, Chet. Who's the other one, Michael? God. All right, Aaron. Thank you for Aaron. My videos is on the keyboard. Let's have a great day and great weekend. Thank you.
Bye, everybody. Have a good